Ever feel like your workday just kind of runs you over?
Yeah.
Like you're just constantly reacting to emails and fires and all these unexpected demands. On today's book summary podcast, we're doing a deep dive into how to have a good day. It's a book that basically promises to help us break free from that reactive cycle and actually like design our workday for success.
You know what I think is so compelling about this book? It's rooted in behavioral science. It's not just like, offering feel-good advice. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's giving us like a really practical understanding of how our brains actually work and how we can use that knowledge to our advantage.
I love that. So often self-help books, they feel a bit fluffy and superficial.
Yeah.
But this one seems to offer something much more substantial, right? So how does it all work? What's the big secret to having a good day?
Well, it all starts with understanding how our brains operate. The book introduces this concept of the two-speed brain,
Okay.
which basically consists of the deliberate system and the automatic system.
Two systems.
Yeah, two systems. Think of the deliberate system as your focused, intentional mind. It's the part of you that plans, strategizes, and makes conscious decisions.
Okay, so like it's the part of me that like writes podcast scripts, plans my grocery list, tries to remember where I put my keys.
Exactly. But here's the catch, the deliberate system is also limited.
Okay,
It gets tired pretty easily and can only, handle so much information at once.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Right? So that's where the automatic system comes in.
Huh. Yeah.
This system is fast, intuitive, and relies on shortcuts and habits. It allows us to do things like, drive a car or type on a keyboard without having to think about like every single detail.
It's the part of me that, knows how to get home from work without consulting a map
Exactly.
or can fold laundry while having a conversation.
Precisely. The automatic system is incredibly efficient, but it can also, lead to some interesting quirks.
Wow.
Have you ever heard of the gorilla experiment?
You mean the one where people are so focused on like counting basketball passes that they completely miss a person in a gorilla suit walking right through the middle of it?
That's the one. It's like a classic example of what they call inattentional blindness, where our brains were so focused on one task that they literally like filter out anything that seems irrelevant. Now, imagine that happening at work.
Oh, yeah.
You're so focused on responding to emails that you miss a crucial detail in a report.
Right.
Or you're so caught up in a meeting that you fail to notice a colleague who's struggling.
Ooh, that hits close to home.
Right.
If you're enjoying this deep dive into the two-speed brain and how it impacts your workday, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Book Summary Podcast for more insightful content like this. So if our automatic systems can sometimes like sabotage our best efforts,
Yeah.
how do we start taking back control?
Well, the book suggests that we start by setting powerful intentions. Now, this isn't about wishful thinking, or like
Yes.
positive affirmations. It's about consciously deciding how you want your day to unfold before, like, all the chaos takes over.
I'm already intrigued, I gotta say. I'm one of those people who, like, often feels at the mercy of my to-do list.
I hear ya.
So how do I go from reactive to proactive? What does setting powerful intentions actually look like?
Well, the book recommends using something called the AIM Attitude Attention Checklist.
Aim, attitude, attention.
Yeah, it's pretty simple but powerful framework for getting your mind in the right space, before your workday begins. First, you ask yourself, what's my main aim for today? What's the one big thing you want to accomplish?
Okay, so it's about, like, prioritizing, choosing a focal point for my energy.
Exactly.
That makes sense. What are the attitude part?
Well, this is about deciding how you want to feel throughout the day. Do you want to feel calm, focused, energized, maybe even like playful? By consciously choosing an attitude, you're kind of like priming your brain to respond to challenges in a more constructive way.
It's like setting an emotional tone for the day. I like that. So if my aim is to, finish that big presentation and my attitude is to stay calm and focused, what's the final piece of the puzzle,
Yeah.
the attention part?
Well, this is about deciding what you want to notice throughout the day. Do you want to notice opportunities for like collaboration, moments of gratitude,
Okay.
or maybe you just want to pay attention to your energy levels and take breaks when
And-
needed?
Like choosing a filter for your perception.
Exactly.
Okay.
I can already see how powerful this could be,
Yeah, instead of just reacting to whatever, pops up, I'm consciously deciding what I want to focus on.
Exactly. And the book argues that this simple act of setting intentions can dramatically shift your experience of work.
I'm curious about this idea of setting intentions in action. Does the book provide any examples of how this actually works in real life?
It does. The author shares a personal anecdote about a time they were dreading a video conference with a colleague
Uh-huh.
named Lucas, who was known for being, well, a bit difficult.
I think we've all had those colleagues, the ones who make our hearts sink a little when we see their name pop up in our inbox. So what happened in this situation?
Well, at first, the author was approaching the meeting with, their usual mindset, bracing themselves for like a frustrating conversation.
Yeah.
But then they remembered this concept of setting intentions.
Yeah.
They took a few minutes to define their, aim, attitude, and attention for the meeting.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat. Did setting intentions actually make a difference in that meeting with Lucas?
You know what? It totally did. They went from expecting a battle to approaching the conversation with, a sense of calm curiosity and a focus on finding common ground. And guess what?
I do.
The meeting ended up being surprisingly productive and even, enjoyable.
Wow. That's a powerful testament to the idea that, even small shifts in our mindset can have a big impact on our experiences.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, positive thinking. It's about using our deliberate system to consciously choose, how we want to show up.
This is also fascinating. If you're finding these insights helpful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Book Summary Podcast for more deep dives into the books that can change your life. Now, setting intentions is a great start, but how do we actually make those intentions stick throughout the day?
That's a great question, and it's something the book addresses in detail. The author introduces 3 powerful techniques for, reinforcing your intentions.
Okay.
Mental contrasting, priming, and mind's eye rehearsal.
Okay, let's unpack these techniques one by one. What's mental contrasting all about?
Mental contrasting is, a way of preparing for potential obstacles. It's about visualizing both, your desired outcome and the things that might, get in your way.
It's like a pre-mortem for your day.
Exactly.
Identifying potential roadblocks and creating a plan to overcome them.
Exactly. By anticipating those challenges, you're less likely to, get thrown off course when they inevitably arise.
Yeah.
You've already mentally, rehearsed how you'll respond.
Okay, that makes sense. What about priming? I've heard that term before, but I'm not quite sure what it means in this context.
Priming is fascinating. It's about deliberately exposing yourself to cues that trigger, helpful associations. The book provides some great examples, like surrounding yourself with objects that represent your goals.
So if my goal is to be more creative, maybe I'd put some artwork on my desk or listen to inspiring music.
Exactly. Or if your aim is to be more productive, you might declutter your workspace or create, a visual to-do list that you can refer to throughout the day. The idea is that these cues act as subtle reminders of your intentions, helping to keep you on track,
And creating an environment that supports your goals.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so we've got mental contrasting for anticipating challenges, priming for creating supportive cues. What's the third technique, mind's eye rehearsal?
This is a technique that's been used by athletes and performers for decades.
Oh, yeah.
It's about mentally practicing a challenging situation to boost confidence and preparedness.
So if I'm dreading a big presentation, I might visualize myself delivering it confidently and engaging the audience.
Precisely. By repeatedly playing out the scenario in your mind, you're essentially training your brain to respond in a more positive and effective way. It's like, giving yourself a mental dress rehearsal.
It's like giving my brain a sneak peek at success, so it knows what to do when the pressure's on.
Exactly.
That's a really cool concept.
Right.
So let me think about all the situations where I could use this technique, from public speaking to difficult conversations.
And that's the beauty of these techniques, They're incredibly versatile. You can adapt them to any situation where you want to, boost your chances of success.
This is all such valuable information. If you're enjoying these insights from How to Have a Good Day, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Book Summary Podcast for more deep dives into the books that can change your life. Okay, we've talked about setting intentions, reinforcing them with these powerful techniques. But what about those times when we feel completely overwhelmed?
Mm-hmm.
Those days when our to-do list seems miles long and everything feels urgent.
Yes, the dreaded feeling of overload. It's something most of us experience at some point.
Yeah.
And, the book doesn't shy away from addressing this common challenge.
Okay, good. Because I think that's where a lot of us struggle, right? So what does the book suggest for those moments when we feel like we're drowning in tasks and deadlines?
Well, it starts with recognizing that we have more control than we often realize.
Okay.
One of the first steps is to get really honest about what's truly important. The book encourages us to ask ourselves, what are the essential tasks that absolutely must get done today?
So it's about prioritizing,
Yeah,
separating the urgent from the important.
exactly. It's easy to get, caught up in reacting to every email or request, but the book reminds us that not everything is equally important. By focusing on the essential tasks, we can free up mental bandwidth and reduce, that feeling of overwhelm.
That's a great reminder. I know I'm often guilty of trying to do everything at once, which, just leads to stress and burnout.
Huh.
So once we've identified the essential tasks, what are some strategies for actually, tackling them?
Well, the book offers several practical tips. One that resonated with me is the 5 whys technique.
5 whys.
It's a way of uncovering the, root causes of procrastination.
I've definitely heard of this technique before, but I'm always up for a refresher. How does it work exactly?
It's pretty simple. When you find yourself putting off a task, ask yourself, why? 5 times in a row.
Okay.
Each time you answer, dig a little deeper.
So if I'm avoiding working on a big presentation, my first why might be because it feels overwhelming.
Right.
My second why might be because I'm not sure where to start, and so on.
Exactly. By asking why repeatedly, you often uncover, hidden fears, beliefs, or logistical issues that are contributing to your procrastination.
Right.
And once you've identified the root cause, you can start to address it directly.
That's such a valuable technique. I'm already thinking about all the areas of my life where I could use this to overcome procrastination.
Right.
The book also emphasizes the importance of setting boundaries, both with ourselves and with others.
Yes.
It's about protecting our time and energy so we can focus on what matters most.
Right.
Boundaries are something I've been working on lately, both personally and professionally. It's so easy to let work bleed into all areas of life, especially in our always connected world. What are some of the book's tips for setting effective boundaries?
Oh, one suggestion is to create clear communication protocols with colleagues and clients. This might involve setting specific times for, checking email or having phone calls so you're not constantly interrupted.
So instead of being reactive, I'm being proactive about when and how I'm available.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. What are some other boundary setting strategies?
Well, the book also encourages us to be assertive about saying, no when necessary.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Right.
It's so easy to feel obligated to say yes to everything.
Right. It's about recognizing that we can't do everything and that it's okay to decline requests that don't align with our priorities or our capacity.
Saying no is definitely a skill I'm still working on. Are there any tips in the book for saying no gracefully?
There are. The book suggests using the positive no technique.
Positive no. Okay.
It's about acknowledging the request, expressing appreciation, and then firmly but politely declining.
So instead of just saying no outright, I might say something like, thank you for thinking of me for this project. I really appreciate the offer, but I'm currently at capacity and won't be able to take it on.
Exactly. It's about finding a balance between being assertive and respectful. And the book provides several scripts and examples to help you, master this skill.
I'm definitely going to be studying those scripts. This is all so incredibly helpful. If you're enjoying these insights on managing overload and setting boundaries, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Book Summary Podcast for more practical tips and strategies for creating a more fulfilling work life. Okay, we've talked about setting intentions, reinforcing them, and managing overload. But what about our interactions with others? How can we cultivate more positive and productive relationships at work?
That's a great question. And it's something the book, delves into in depth. The author emphasizes the importance of understanding other people's, motivations and perspectives.
That makes sense. After all, we're all coming to the workplace with our own unique experiences, beliefs, and goals. So how do we start to bridge that gap and understand where our colleagues are coming from?
One key concept the book explores is something called projection bias.
Projection bias.
It's this tendency we all have to assume that others share our preferences and perspective.
Well, I'm definitely guilty of this.
Right.
It's easy to forget that not everyone sees the world the same way I do. So how does projection bias impact our interactions at work?
Well, it can lead to all sorts of misunderstandings and conflicts.
Okay.
For example, you might assume that a colleague is being intentionally difficult, when in reality, they're simply approaching, the task from a different perspective.
Or I might like misinterpret someone's tone or body language because I'm projecting my own like assumptions onto them.
Exactly. And the book suggests that becoming aware of this bias is the first step to overcoming it. Once we recognize that our perspective is just one of many, we can start to approach interactions with more curiosity and empathy.
That's such a valuable insight.
Yeah.
I'm already thinking about like past situations where projection bias might have played a role in my interactions with colleagues.
Yeah.
What are some other key concepts the book explores in terms of understanding others?
Another important concept is in-group bias.
In group.
This is our natural tendency to like favor people who we perceive as being, part of our own group.
So we might be more likely to like trust, support, or agree with people who are similar to us in terms of like background, beliefs, or values.
Exactly. And while this bias can be helpful in some contexts, it can also, create divisions and conflicts in the workplace.
It can lead to us like making assumptions about people based on their group affiliation rather than seeing them as individuals.
Right.
That's a really important point.
The book argues that becoming aware of in-group bias is like essential for creating a more inclusive and collaborative work environment.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that diversity of thought and perspective is a strength, not a weakness.
I'm really loving this focus on understanding others. It's so easy to get caught up in our own heads, right? And forget that everyone else is navigating their own unique world. So beyond understanding like biases, are there any practical strategies the book offers for building rapport with others?
Absolutely. The book emphasizes the power of reciprocity and active listening.
Okay, we touched on reciprocity earlier when we were talking about, building a more collaborative culture.
Yeah.
It's that idea of like giving back to those who have given to us, right?
Exactly. And the book argues that, small acts of kindness, generosity, or even just like genuine compliments can go a long way in strengthening relationships and fostering, a sense of teamwork.
So it's not about keeping score or expecting something in return.
Right.
It's about creating a culture of like mutual support and appreciation.
Precisely. And active listening is another powerful tool for building rapport.
We've all heard the phrase, active listening.
Uh-huh.
But what does it actually look like in practice? How do we go beyond like just nodding along and pretending to pay attention?
Well, it's about truly focusing on the other person, putting aside your own thoughts and judgments and making them feel like heard and understood.
Okay.
It's about paying attention to their body language, their tone of voice, and what's not being said as much as, what is.
It's about being fully present in the conversation and making the other person like feel valued.
Exactly. And the book argues that active listening can be transformative for, our relationships, both personally and professionally. It can lead to better communication, stronger connections, and more effective problem solving.
The book had that funny anecdote about the executive comparing extreme listening to like flirting, right?
Yeah. This is a great illustration of how rare genuine focused attention can be. He said it was so rare for him to witness, anyone paying undivided attention to another person that like the only reference point he had was wooing his spouse. But the point is, active listening can be incredibly powerful in the workplace. It makes people feel valued, respected, and much more open to what you have to say.
This is all such great stuff. If you're enjoying these insights on building stronger relationships at work, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Book Summary Podcast for more tips and strategies from the books that can change your life. Okay, so we've talked about understanding others and building rapport through reciprocity and active listening. But what about when we need to like help others reach their full potential? What does the book say about like effective coaching and mentorship?
Well, the book provides a really helpful framework for, coaching and mentorship called the GRIRO model.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this GRIRO model. What is it? What does it stand for?
GRIRO stands for, goal, reality, options, and will.
Okay.
It's like a simple yet powerful tool for guiding others toward their own solutions.
So instead of just like telling people what to do, coaching is about asking like thought-provoking questions that help them like uncover their own insights and develop their own action plans.
Exactly. The GRIRO model provides, a structure for those conversations. It starts with like helping the person define their goal. What do they want to achieve? What does success look like for them?
Okay, so first we help them like clarify their destination. Then what?
Then we, explore the reality of their current situation. What's working? What's not working? What are the obstacles they're facing?
It's about helping them like Assess their starting point and identify the challenges they need to overcome.
Exactly. And once we have a clear understanding of the goal and the reality, we can start to, brainstorm options.
Right.
What are the different paths they could take to reach their goal? What are the resources they need?
It's about empowering them to, generate their own solutions.
Right.
Rather than just giving them the answers.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the final step is to, explore their will. How committed are they to achieving this goal? What are they willing to do to make it happen?
It's about helping them, tap into their own motivation and commitment.
Yeah.
That's a really smart approach. I can see how this GR Dowdle could be incredibly helpful, not just in, a formal coaching or mentoring relationship, but also in everyday interactions with colleagues.
Absolutely. It's a versatile framework that can be applied to any situation where you want to, support someone's growth and development. And the book shares a really inspiring story about a manager named Ndidi who transformed her team's performance by switching from a micromanagement style to a coaching approach, using the Jira W model.
I'm always fascinated by stories of leadership transformation. Tell me more about Ndidi's experience. What kind of impact did this shift in approach have on her team?
Well, before she adopted the GRW model, her team members felt stifled and, demotivated. They weren't given the space to think for themselves or contribute their own ideas.
It sounds like they were being told what to do rather than being empowered to own their work.
Exactly. And they were constantly seeking approval and direction, which created, a bottleneck in their workflow. But when Ndidi started using coaching questions based on the GROW model, she noticed a, significant shift.
What kind of shift did she see?
Well, her team members became more engaged, proactive, and, accountable for their work. They felt trusted and empowered to, make decisions and take action, which led to a dramatic improvement in their performance.
That's incredible. It really speaks to the power of coaching and the importance of respecting autonomy.
Absolutely. And it highlights the fact that effective leadership is not about, controlling others. It's about empowering them to reach their full potential.
This whole conversation has really got me thinking about the power we have to shape our workday experience.
Yeah.
It's not about just showing up and hoping for the best. It's about being intentional, understanding how our brains work, and using that knowledge to our advantage.
I love that insight. And it's exactly what this book is all about. It's about, empowering us to take control, to create more positive relationships, to manage challenges effectively, and to ultimately, design a workday that works for us. Building on that idea of shaping our workday, I think one of the most impactful sections of How to Have a Good Day focuses on decision making.
Okay.
It turns out our brains are full of these sneaky little shortcuts called cognitive biases.
Cognitive biases, those are the mental traps that can sometimes lead us to make irrational or illogical decisions, right?
Exactly. They're like these ingrained patterns of thinking that, evolved to help us make quick judgments in complex situations.
Okay.
But the downside is they can sometimes lead us astray, especially in a work environment where clear thinking is so crucial.
Okay, so I'm guessing the book dives into some of the most common cognitive biases that trip us up at work.
It does, and it offers some really helpful strategies for recognizing and overcoming those biases. One of the most prevalent biases is confirmation bias.
Oh, confirmation bias. That's the one where we tend to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs, even if that information isn't accurate or complete.
Right.
It's like we're cherry-picking evidence to support our pre-existing opinions.
You nailed it, and it's a dangerous bias because it can lead us to make decisions based on, incomplete or flawed information. The book gives the example of someone who's convinced that a particular project is doomed to fail, and then selectively focuses on all the evidence that supports that belief while ignoring any evidence to the contrary.
I've definitely been guilty of that before. It's like we create these self-fulfilling prophecies. So how do we overcome confirmation bias?
Well, the book suggests actively seeking out diverse perspectives.
Okay.
It's about intentionally exposing ourselves to viewpoints that challenge our own assumptions.
So if I'm convinced a project won't work, I should make an effort to talk to people who believe it will succeed.
Exactly. And listen with an open mind. It's also about being willing to question our own assumptions.
So ask ourselves, why do I believe this?
Right.
What evidence supports this belief? What evidence might challenge this belief?
Precisely. It's about cultivating intellectual humility and recognizing that we don't always have all the answers.
This is such valuable advice.
Yeah.
And it's so applicable to so many areas of life, not just work. So what other cognitive biases does the book explore?
Another common one is processing fluency bias.
Processing fluency bias.
Okay, this is the tendency to favor ideas that are easy to understand and remember, even if those ideas aren't the best solutions.
So we might be drawn to simple explanations or catchy slogans, even if those explanations are oversimplified or misleading. It's like judging a book by its cover.
Exactly. And in a work environment, this bias can lead to us choosing solutions that are easy to implement, but may not address the underlying issues. The book gives the example of a team choosing a familiar software program, even though a newer, more complex program would be more effective in the long run.
It's the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
It's understandable why we might fall into that trap,
Yeah.
but it's not always the best approach. So how do we overcome processing fluency bias?
Well, the book suggests slowing down and taking the time to carefully consider all options.
To resist that initial impulse to choose the easiest or most familiar solution.
Exactly. It's also about seeking out information from multiple sources and being willing to wrestle with complex ideas.
To not shy away from the challenging stuff. Okay, what other cognitive biases should we be aware of?
Another one that can really trip us up is the sunk cost fallacy.
Ooh, I've definitely fallen victim to this one before.
Mm-hmm.
The sunk cost fallacy is about sticking with a decision even when it's clearly not working, simply because we've already invested time, energy, or money into it.
You've got it. It's like refusing to abandon a sinking ship because you've already sailed so far.
Or continuing to pour resources into a failing project because you don't want to admit defeat.
Exactly. And the book argues that this bias can be incredibly costly both literally and figuratively. It can drain our resources, damage our reputation, and prevent us from pursuing more promising opportunities.
Okay, so how do we escape the clutches of the sunk cost fallacy?
Well, the book suggests setting clear goals and milestones for any project or decision and regularly evaluating our progress against those benchmarks.
So we're checking in and asking ourselves, is this still working?
Right.
Are we on track to achieve our goals? Is this the best use of our resources?
Precisely. And it's about being willing to cut our losses and pivot when necessary, even if it means admitting we made a mistake.
To acknowledge that sometimes the best decision is to walk away. It's a powerful concept, and it takes a certain level of self-awareness and courage to put it into practice.
Absolutely. And the book provides several examples and exercises to help us develop those skills.
This is all such valuable information. If you're enjoying these insights on cognitive biases and decision-making, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Book Summary Podcast for more practical strategies for the world of behavioral science. Now, we've talked about understanding our own brains and how to avoid common mental pitfalls. But what about understanding the minds of others? Does the book delve into any strategies for navigating those tricky interpersonal dynamics that can make or break our workday?
It absolutely does. And one of the most fascinating sections of the book focuses on this idea of coaching, not telling.
Coaching, not telling. I like the sound of that. Sounds like it's about empowering others rather than dictating to them.
Exactly. And the book argues that this approach is not only more effective, but also more respectful and motivating. It's about helping others reach their full potential by guiding them towards their own solutions rather than imposing our own.
It's about tapping into their intrinsic motivation rather than relying on external pressure or authority.
Precisely. And the book provides a really helpful framework for this coaching approach, which, as we mentioned earlier, is called the GRIO model.
Right. The GRUO model, we touched on this earlier when we were talking about helping others achieve their goals, but I'm eager to dive deeper into this framework. Can you remind us what GROW stands for and how it works in practice?
Of course, GROW stands for Goal Reality Options and Will. And as we discussed before, it's a structured approach to guiding someone towards their own solutions.
Right. So the first step is to help the person define their goal. What do they want to achieve? What does success look like for them? What are some effective coaching questions we could use to help someone clarify their goal?
Some great questions to ask might include, what would you like to accomplish? What would make this a success for you? What are you hoping to achieve by doing this?
Okay, so once we've helped them clarify their goal, what's the next step?
Then we move on to, exploring the reality of their current situation. This is about helping them assess their starting point and identify the challenges they might face.
So we could ask questions like, what's working well right now? What's not working so well? What are the obstacles you're facing?
Exactly. And it's important to listen carefully to their responses and to resist the temptation to jump in with solutions or advice.
Right. It's about letting them own their reality and come to their own conclusions.
Precisely. And once we have a clear understanding of the goal and the reality, we can start to brainstorm options. This is where the real creative magic happens.
It's about helping them generate their own solutions rather than just telling them what to do. What are some effective questions we could use to spark brainstorming and exploration?
Some good ones might include, what are some different ways you could approach this? What resources might be helpful? Who could you ask for support?
I love that. It's about expanding their possibilities and helping them see the situation from different angles.
Exactly. And the final step in the GRO model is to explore their will. This is about helping them tap into their own motivation and commitment.
Okay, so how do we do that? What kinds of questions can we ask to help someone assess their level of commitment?
We might ask, how committed are you to achieving this goal? What are you willing to do to make it happen? What might get in the way of your commitment?
I love this whole GRO model. It's such a simple yet powerful framework for empowering others. And I think it applies to so many different situations, not just formal coaching or mentoring relationships.
I agree. It's a valuable tool for anyone who wants to be a more supportive and effective leader, colleague, or friend.
And speaking of supportive colleagues, the book also emphasizes the importance of building a culture of psychological safety at work.
Psychological safety, that's about creating an environment where people feel comfortable speaking up, sharing ideas, and taking risks without fear of judgment or retribution.
Exactly. And it's a crucial ingredient for innovation, collaboration, and overall well-being in the workplace.
Absolutely. And the book provides some really helpful tips for fostering this kind of environment.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some of the book's suggestions for creating psychological safety at work?
One of the most important things is to model vulnerability and openness ourselves as leaders.
To be willing to admit our own mistakes, ask for help, and share our own struggles.
Exactly. It sends a powerful message that it's okay to not have all the answers and that we're all learning and growing together.
That's so important. I think so often, especially in leadership positions, there's this pressure to appear perfect and infallible. But that just creates a culture of fear and silence.
Precisely. And it stifles creativity and innovation. The book also suggests actively soliciting feedback from team members and creating opportunities for open dialogue.
So we're not just talking about those annual performance reviews, but rather creating a culture of ongoing feedback and communication.
Exactly. It's about making it clear that we value diverse perspectives and that we want to hear from everyone, even if they disagree with us.
And it's about responding to feedback in a constructive and appreciative way, even if it's difficult to hear.
Absolutely. It's about creating a safe space for honest and open communication.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground so far. We've talked about understanding our own brains, navigating cognitive biases, building rapport with others, and fostering psychological safety. If you're enjoying these insights from How to Have a Good Day, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the final part of this deep dive, where we'll explore even more strategies for unlocking a better workday.
You know, all this talk about fostering a positive work environment, it reminds me of another key theme from How to Have a Good Day, the importance of energy management.
Oh, energy management. That's a good one. I feel like my energy levels are constantly like fluctuating throughout the day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like firing on all cylinders, and other times I can barely keep my eyes open.
It's something we all struggle with. And the book provides some really practical strategies for, understanding our own energy patterns and making choices that support our well-being.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Hmm.
What are some of the book's top tips for energy management?
Well, it starts with recognizing that our energy is a finite resource. It's not limitless. And we need to be mindful of how we're spending it throughout the day.
That's a good analogy. It's like managing a budget.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of money, we're managing our mental and physical energy.
Exactly. And just like with a financial budget, if we overspend in one area, we might end up depleted in another.
So if I spend all my energy in the morning trying to clear my inbox, I might end up feeling drained and unproductive in the afternoon.
Precisely. The book suggests paying attention to our own natural energy rhythms.
To notice when we tend to feel most energized and focused,
Right.
and when we tend to experience those inevitable energy dips.
Exactly. And then try to, structure our day accordingly.
So if I'm a morning person, I might block off that time for my most challenging or creative tasks and save those less demanding tasks for the afternoon when my energy levels naturally decline.
Exactly. It's about working with our natural rhythms instead of fighting against them.
That makes a lot of sense. I know I've often tried to power through those afternoon slumps with caffeine and willpower, but it's not always sustainable.
Yeah. And the book also emphasizes the importance of taking breaks throughout the day.
Breaks. But I thought breaks were for slackers.
Yeah.
I need to be working every minute of the day to be productive.
That's a common misconception, but the research actually shows that taking breaks can actually boost our productivity and creativity.
Really? Tell me more about that.
Our brains are like muscles. They need time to rest and recover in order to, function at their best.
So if we're constantly pushing ourselves without taking breaks, we're essentially like running on fumes.
Exactly. The book suggests taking short breaks every hour or so to get up, move around, stretch, or simply relax our minds.
Okay, that seems doable. I can definitely incorporate some short breaks into my workday. What about longer breaks?
The book also emphasizes the importance of taking longer breaks throughout the day, like a proper lunch break where we disconnect from work and recharge our batteries.
Ooh, disconnecting from work. That's a tough one, especially in today's always connected world.
I know it's a challenge, but it's so important for our mental and emotional well-being. The book suggests leaving our phones at our desks, going for a walk outside, or having lunch with a friend or colleague.
It's about creating those boundaries between work and personal life so we can truly relax and recharge.
Exactly. And when we come back to work, we're more likely to feel refreshed, focused, and productive.
Okay, I'm convinced I need to start taking more breaks. And speaking of things that boost our energy, the book also talks about the importance of sleep, exercise, and nutrition, right?
It does. Those are the foundational pillars of well-being, and they play a huge role in our energy levels, cognitive function, and emotional resilience.
Okay, so let's start with sleep. How much sleep do we actually need? And how does sleep deprivation impact our workday?
Well, most adults need around 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep per night.
And I'm guessing most of us aren't getting enough.
Sadly, that's true. Sleep deprivation is a widespread problem, and it can have a significant impact on our, workday performance.
Like what? What happens when we're sleep deprived?
Our cognitive function takes a hit, our decision-making suffers, our creativity wanes, and we're more prone to errors and accidents.
Wow, that's scary. It's like operating on autopilot.
Exactly. And our emotional resilience also suffers. We're more irritable, more reactive to stress, and less able to cope with challenges.
So getting enough sleep is not just about feeling well rested. It's also about being a more effective and resilient employee.
Precisely. The book suggests creating a consistent sleep routine, avoiding caffeine and alcohol before bed, and creating a relaxing bedtime ritual.
It's about prioritizing sleep as an essential investment in our, health and well-being.
Exactly. And what about exercise? How does regular physical activity impact our workday?
I know exercise is good for us, but I'm always struggling to find the time and motivation to fit it into my, busy schedule.
I understand. But even small amounts of exercise can make a big difference. The book suggests finding activities we enjoy and incorporating them into our daily routine.
So instead of forcing myself to go to the gym, I could go for a walk during my lunch break, take the stairs instead of the elevator, or even just do some stretches at my desk.
Exactly. And exercise has so many benefits for our workday. It boosts our energy levels, improves our mood, reduces stress, and even enhances our cognitive function.
It's like a magic pill for productivity.
In a way, it is.
Yeah.
And what about nutrition? How does what we eat impact our workday?
I know I should be eating healthier, but sometimes those sugary snacks and processed foods are just so tempting.
I know it's a challenge. The book suggests focusing on, whole, unprocessed foods like fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and whole grains.
It's about fueling our bodies with the nutrients they need to function at their best.
Exactly, and avoiding those sugary drinks and processed snacks that can lead to energy crashes and mood swings.
Okay, I'm going to make a conscious effort to eat more mindfully. And speaking of mindfulness, the book also talks about the importance of incorporating mindfulness practices into our workday, right?
It does. Mindfulness is about paying attention to the present moment without judgment. It's about noticing our thoughts, feelings, and sensations without getting caught up in them.
Okay, I can see how that could be helpful for managing stress and staying focused. But how do we actually practice mindfulness in the workplace?
Well, the book suggests incorporating short mindfulness practices into our day, like taking a few minutes to focus on our breath, doing a body scan meditation, or simply paying attention to the sights and sounds around us.
It's about finding those little pockets of stillness and presence amidst the busyness of our workday.
Exactly. And mindfulness has so many benefits for our workday. It reduces stress, improves focus, enhances emotional regulation, and even boosts creativity.
It's like hitting the reset button for our minds.
In a way, it is. And it's a skill we can develop over time with practice.
Okay, I'm going to give mindfulness a try. And speaking of trying new things, I think one of the most important takeaways from How to Have a Good Day is that it's all about experimentation.
I completely agree. It's about finding what works best for us as individuals.
What works for one person may not work for another.
Exactly. The book encourages us to experiment with different strategies, to be curious and to keep learning and growing.
It's about embracing the journey and recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to having a good day.
And it's about remembering that we have more control over our workday experience than we often realize.
It's about taking ownership of our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, and our environment.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into how to have a good day. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration of practical strategies for creating a more positive and fulfilling work life.
If you found these insights helpful, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Book Summary Podcast for more deep dives into the books that can change your life. And in the meantime, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you tried any of these techniques? What resonated with you most? Let us know in the comments below.
Until next time, happy learning.
And remember, every day is an opportunity to have a good day.
So choose wisely.